Morning, evening, Grace, America, and happy St. Patrick's Day to you. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined by Senator Tom Cotton of the great state of Arkansas, chairman of the Senate Intel Committee. We have a lot to cover. Senator, we have three new affiliates up in the Hudson Valley that may not know you're a Red Sox fan, so we won't tell them about that. They're all Giants and Yankees and Knicks fans, so they might not like that. Let me begin with the very serious thing that at this hour there is a hearing underway in Washington, D.C., on President Trump's decision to send plane loads of terrorists and cartelistas to El Salvador and I believe Venezuela, despite, ambiguous phrasing from the bench. And I think it's a non-justiciable political question. What do you think?
Well, Hugh, it's good to be on with you. Maybe it's on. I saw, though, that the Department of Justice over Pam Bondi's signature filed an hour or two ago a motion to vacate the hearing because there's no ground for a hearing. This judge, I would say a rogue judge on Saturday, tried to intervene with an overseas military flight to redirect it back to the United States. It was already out of U.S. airspace, out of the judge's jurisdiction, with depraved terrorist gang members, known murderers and rapists, going to our good friends in El Salvador. Therefore, the administration fully complied with his order, which was later reduced to a written order that didn't even say that. So I'm not sure what the basis for a hearing is or what the issue is here. But if they go forward with the hearing and this rogue Obama judge, again, tries to interfere with the president's core responsibilities as commander-in-chief, I can't imagine but that this won't go to the Supreme Court very promptly and that President Trump's actions will be upheld. And the court will probably deliver a needed rebuke to these liberal judges all across the country who keep trying to interfere with core responsibilities of the commander-in-chief.
There's a lot to cover. I'm amused by legacy media reminding us it's a 200-year-old law. The alien enemy law is, in fact, 200 years old. It was passed along with the sedition law. The sedition law was repealed by the Congress in 1920 because they didn't like it. They chose not to repeal this law. And this law has never been tested under the circumstances of a declaration by a non-nation state actor of invasion. So it's a case of first impression. I cannot imagine the Supreme Court overruling the president, but I also don't think the Supreme Court wants to do this, Senator. Do you?
No, it's very hard to imagine, Hugh, that the Supreme Court would, again, intrude upon the president's core Article 2 responsibilities to protect the country, as if the Supreme Court tried to tell, or I should say, not the Supreme Court, a lone trial judge tried to tell the president in the aftermath of 2001 he couldn't detain and remove al-Qaeda terrorists from the country. But again, so many of these judges apparently are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, like so many of the Democrats in the Congress who are rising up in arms and manning the ramparts on behalf of depraved, savage murderers and rapists. They're now being detained in El Salvador, or this doctor up in New England who left the country and wasn't admitted because she had gone to Hassan Nasrallah's funeral celebrating terrorism overseas. Again, you just can't make up what these Democrats are defending simply to be opposed to Donald Trump.
It is kind of remarkable, but I like to stick to the law. Secretary Rubio has all the authority he needs under 8 U.S.C. 1227 to deport green card holders who are acting in ways contrary to the foreign policy. He doesn't owe anyone an explanation. It's a non-justiciable political question. It's crazy to me that they're trying to be on the side of the bad guys. Let me move to the more important thing. On the weekend, the president ordered a massive series of strikes on the Houthis. The Biden regency is over. Apparently, the Houthis didn't know that there's a president back and the regency is over. And he is told, I think directly, the Ayatollah Khamenei, if the attacks from the Houthis continue on the Truman or our ships or on shipping, the next attacks are coming for Iran. Is that what you understood the president to say?
Hugh, the attacks against Yemen were long overdue. For 18 months, they've been terrorizing international shipping in the Red Sea, contributing to high prices here at home. They've also been targeting our sailors on U.S. Navy ships. For a year and a half, I condemned the Biden administration for its passivity. I was glad to see the president take action this weekend and then say today that there really is no such thing as the Houthi rebels in Yemen. They're just a cat's paw for Iran. and that any attack out of Yemen would be treated as an attack out of Iran. He's giving very fair warning to the Ayatollahs in Tehran. It reminds me, Hugh, of a moment late in his first term, I think it was December of 2020, when there were serious threats coming out of Iraq from paramilitary groups in Iraq against our troops stationed there, and President Trump said very simply, some friendly health advice to the Ayatollahs. If a single hair is harmed on an American head in Iraq, we will hold you accountable. And guess what? No hairs on American heads were harmed for the remainder of the Trump presidency.
Well, they keep shooting at our carrier. They shot at the Eisenhower when it was there. They shot at the TR when it was there. They shot at the Lincoln when it was there. They shoot at the destroyers. They've shot at the McCain. They've shot at every ship that goes through. They shoot at it. To me, the only way to stop this is to return fire, and not at the Houthis and their monster garage rockets, but at the Iranians who are supplying them. My question for you, Senator, is if the president asks your advice, would you shoot back a little, or would you shoot back in a way that destroyed their nuclear program?
Well, Hugh, I don't think a kind of modulated, tentative, hesitant, diffident response works very well when you're dealing with radical theocrats of the kind that govern Iran. So I think the president has tried to be measured. He's explained very clearly that he wants a deal to end Iran's nuclear program. He would prefer a deal, but if a deal is not in the offing because the Ayatollahs refuse it and they insist on continuing their nuclear weapons program, that we can handle it, as he sometimes says, the other way. And if it's the other way, it's going to be very bad for Iran.
When we says the other way, that does not involve ground troops, in your opinion, does it?
No, not at all. I'm not sure of any person in Washington who advocates for such a thing. This is not a choice between passivity in the face of Iran going nuclear or invading Iran and occupying it for the next 10 years. But it's of the kind of strikes that, say, Ronald Reagan conducted in 1988 to end the tanker wars after an Iranian mine struck the U.S. Navy ship in the Persian Gulf. Or for that matter, that Israel has conducted in the past in Iraq and in Syria to end nuclear weapons development in those countries. So we're not talking about ground troops, an invasion, an occupation, a so-called forever war. We're talking about the discriminate but forceful application of military power to protect our national interests. And there are few interests as vital as preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Because remember, Hugh, it's not just about a threat to Israel or our Arab friends. Iran also has an intercontinental ballistic missile program under the flimsy cover of space launch research, which could probably reach the United States in fewer than 5 years.
Would you expect that our allies in the region, not just Israel, but the Saudis, the UAE, the Bahrainis, would support action against Iran's nuclear program sites? And there are a dozen to 15 of them, if I understand things correctly.
Well, Iran has menaced not just the United States and Israel since the Ayatollahs took over in 1979, but all of our Arab friends as well. And I've spoken to many of them who, although they're worried about the threat from Iran, about Iran's missile and one-way attack drone on their country, they would welcome, I believe, a forceful American response to Iranian aggression.
Now, if we do that, Senator, what would be the impact in Beijing?
Well, I think any time a nation acts with strength and competence to defend its vital national interests, the whole world takes note. So you imagine that Xi Jinping couldn't help but take note if Donald Trump did so. Just like, Hugh, if you remember, in early 2017, between the main course and the dessert course at Mar-a-Lago with Xi Jinping and Donald Trump, Trump ordered strikes into Syria for gassing its own people and then told Xi about it.
I do remember that, and I thought it was rather an elegant display of resolve and toughness. And I think the president has signaled that. Last question, Senator. Will anyone be surprised? Will anyone have a legitimate grounds for surprise if the United States ends up in a shooting war in a shooting match, not a war, with Iran this week?
No, I don't think so, Hugh. I mean, as Donald Trump said, the Houthis from Yemen attacking our naval ships or international shipping is basically an Iranian attack because they're just a cat's paw of Iran. And he's gone out of his way to avoid this. He's given Iran more than ample opportunity to have a peaceful resolution to the threats that they pose to America and our interests. So if they don't take that peaceful resolution, then as President Trump has said, we can always handle matters the other way. And it won't be long, and it won't be involved. It'll be very fast, and it will not end well for the Ayatollahs in Tehran.
And I think the other way is getting very close to being the way. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you for joining me on St. Patrick's Day. Luck of the Irish to you. Don't go anywhere.